Okay, well, welcome to everyone out there on Zoom to the second session of Lunch and Learn. Lunch and Learn. Today's session is going to be on mulch, everything about mulch and your food forest. This is part of a 10-week series all about how to create a food forest. We're looking at really detailed areas over the next 10 weeks and putting it together so that you'll be able to build your own food forest at the end of it. We're doing this, we're proud partners and in conjunction with Grow It Local, who we're really big fans on. If you do any gardening whatsoever, we recommend that you sign up at growitlocal.com. If you've even got a pot of basil on your shelf and that's it, put it there because you'll find out about all the other growers in your area. They put on excellent free digital workshops every fortnight, and this is one of them. Today, we'll be having some of the others come in front of the camera, but right now what I'm going to do is give some of the context. So we're looking at mulch. Why would we use mulch? So a typical orchard, where you're growing lots of fruit trees, they would probably use fertilizers, and they'd use sprays for this, that, and the other. Now, what a fertilizer does is it's aimed at feeding the plant. Now, that might make a lot of sense to everyone, but because we're using permaculture principles or regenerative agriculture, we look at it a different way. And as people, we don't know exactly what's happening for the plant. And so when we put on fertilizers, it's like feeding with a sledgehammer. It's not very sophisticated. So what we're doing here is we're feeding the soil, not the plant, and we feed it with mulch. When you feed the soil mulch, you're actually feeding the soil bacteria, the worms, the fungi, and all the rich life that's in your soil if you don't apply poisons. And they are what feeds the plants. And because there's hundreds, millions, thousands of different bacteria, fungi, worms going on, it's a very sophisticated way of feeding the plant. And in that way, you get super healthy plants and you don't have the costs. So that's the context for why we're looking at mulch. Mulch is the way of feeding the soil, which then feeds the plant. Fertilizers feed the plant directly and not very well. So I'll hand you over to Steve Batley, who is our permaculture expert and landscape architect for the next stage. Thanks.
So really, it's more sophisticated than tipping chemicals onto the ground, but we did it last week, didn't we? We did some mulching and it's not that sort of sophisticated really. So I might call up, is it Bronwyn and Trish, just to talk a bit about what we did last week out in the food forest with mulching to feed our soil. So what did we use for mulch? What did we use?
Bits of plants.
Bits of plants, pretty easy. Where do we get them?
Stalks and leaves from the food forest that was around us. So you told us the best ones to use.
Yeah, yes. I just happen to have some here.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So this is part of our review and our remembering. Remember what that one is?
That had these leaves that were pigeon pea.
Close.
Pigeons.
Is that?
Oh, vanilla ice cream something.
Yeah.
Yeah, bean. Ice cream bean.
Ice cream bean. Fabulous. It's just quickly, how does it grow?
So that was a treat.
Yeah.
In little pots like that.
Yeah, great.
And they're quite tasty actually.
Yeah, you can eat the stuff inside the pot. So that's ice cream bean, really good for mulch. We'll just quickly see if we remember all of these. And feel free to shout out if you know what they are.
I think that is pigeon pea.
Correct. Pigeon pea.
That was arrowroot.
Yeah.
Arrowroot. Tell me a little bit about arrowroot, what we discovered here a few years ago when we were mulching with arrowroot.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. Actually, you chopped this up into small little bits and you put it in front of the plants. And guess what happened? We had 100 little frogs would bury in under it. So they created a little bit of habitat.
There's so much water in the stalk.
Yeah, it's a really moist plant, isn't it? So we put a pile of those, so just a mound of arrowroot, and yeah, all these frogs came to live there. So you're not only feeding the soil, you're feeding the critters as well.
And that one was good in shade, I think.
Yeah, we'll grow it anywhere. Yeah. And this one.
Come through. This is comfrey here.
Yeah, how do you remember this one?
Humphrey Bear, you know. And then you've got comfrey, but no berry.
It's very.
Yeah, it's very big leaf.
And it's got this kind of hairs at the back of the,
Yeah.
of the leaf.
And what's this one?
This is bamboo.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a type of clumping bamboo. So there's lots and lots of different types. Okay, can I get you guys to demonstrate the process of mulching?
Sure. Are you going to give us?
Excuse
the-
me. Choppers over here, if you need them.
Okay. So you want to go with that one?
You can just mulch. Say there's a tree on the ground here.
So all we do is, and we've got an incredible, capable assistant here who's not going to cut off her fingers.
Health and safety training.
And she's just going to chop up small little pieces. And we're going to apply them on the surface of the ground, actually. And it's called chop, not pop, chop and drop. Doing an amazing job.
Satisfying.
And what, just while you're chopping and dropping, how deep would you make the mulch, do you think?
I don't think very deep at all because it will eventually decompose and sink.
I think it was 10 centimeters, you said, something,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
deeper than some of us expected.
Yeah, you might, I think, about 100, at least 10 centimeters. You could go a bit deeper. If you go like that, then you create habitat problems. But if it's a bit shallow, it may not create the conditions for that life in the soil to come and do that. So about 10 centimeters would be ideal. Could be green material, could be pretty much anything. So these plants are particular ones that we use for mulching, but any plant that grows out there, we can do this. One of the it's really simple. One of the characteristics, I guess, of these plants is they're the sort of plants that will grow in poor conditions. So what we're doing is improving soil. So because the soil is not improved, we grow plants that don't mind poor soil, and this process makes the soil healthier and supports more complex soil life. So really simple. Get a plant, chop it, and put it on the ground. That's mulching. It's very easy. Q&A. Anyone got any questions?
I was actually thinking right now, it would sort of suffocate seedlings, wouldn't it? Or little tiny starter plants.
Yeah, so when we're mulching like that and forming a thick layer of organic matter. What happens to the little plants that are on the ground? So there's little seedlings, little baby plants growing.
I mean, maybe they just push through. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Some of the weeds will also die.
Yeah, so part of this is part of our weed management strategy. So you can use mulch to minimize what we call weeds, but maybe as we go we'll learn.
Great, and we've got a question from somebody in Zoom.
Yes.
Daryl, would you like to ask your question?
Hey, Julian, yeah, there's a question from Emily and I here, and can you create mulch from any plant-based matter?
Yes. 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 Yeah.
You wouldn't use invasive weed.
I was thinking that you would want asparagus.
I'm assuming
yeah.
not weeds.
It's a weed with a seed on it. You may not use it unless you got chickens, and then that becomes food. But the other thing to think about is one of the permaculture principles we use a lot is use and value diversity. So you wouldn't necessarily just have arrowroot mulch over the whole garden, and that's all it is, because that's not diverse. So you can use anything, but keep the diversity idea in mind. So the more different plants you can use, the better. Get more critters coming.
Steve, I did have a question. One of the group asked why you don't put the mulch directly on the plant.
Around,
Yes.
like on the stem.
Yeah.
Yeah, what can happen if you put mulch up against the stem of a tree? Does anyone know that story? Yeah, yeah. So tree stems or trunks is the word, meant to be out of the ground. So if you pile stuff against the tree stump, it can get too moist and it can rot.
Okay.
And you got a beautiful pile of mulch where you can't take it through. So it's not the end of the world, but yeah, it's yeah. So if you leave airspace around the plant, and it's the same with little seedlings in a garden, you want to have airspace around that plant when you're mulching around it, so yeah, so it can breathe.
And the water will be saved in there as well when you're watering.
Yes, so mulch keeps water in the soil, stops it evaporating. What are some of the other, just to wrap up, I guess, what are some of the other benefits of mulch? Or what are some of
It combines really well when you put it with food scraps to make compost.
Yes.
And compost is one of the best ways to draw carbon out of the atmosphere.
Yep.
And both of those go into making soil, right? Well, maybe
Yeah.
just food doesn't, but anyway, mulch goes into making soil.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's building soil, it's putting carbon in the ground. Talking about saving water, reducing weed, sort of managing weeds. What else?
Temperature, like, at a stable temperature, like.
Yes, yep, helps keep the soil temperature kind of stable. It's like a insulating blanket over the top of your soil.
Julian, how deep should the mulch be, or Steve, over the, how thick of a layer of mulch should you leave?
Yeah, what do you reckon?
10 millimeters. 10 millimeters.
Yeah, 10 centimeters roughly. More is probably better. But if you can keep it at that level, that seems to be, it all depends, but yeah, about 10 centimeters.
Thank
Well, that's
you.
all time for this week. We hope you join us again next week, because I think we're getting dirty next week. We're talking about mud taps as part of the design process. So that's going to be super exciting. And then we'll continue that on. I've just put in the chat a link for you to provide some feedback, or you can scan this QR code. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Julian.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.